Everybody, welcome to part 2 of my video series for Cabals, the board game. I have the game set up and I'm going to show you some sample gameplay so you can get an idea of how the game plays. If you also want to learn how to play the game, make sure you check out my tutorial video on how to play the game Cabals. I have the game set up for a two-player game between Carl Billagut, who's leading the Vril Society, versus Rasputin, who is currently leading the Black Bear Brotherhood. I have it set up for a two-player game. Now remember, these hands are normally hidden for the other players when I have the hands laid out so you can see the kind of cards I'm playing, so you can see the kind of strategies because I'm going to discuss them so you get an idea of just what the gameplay looks like. Every player has a starting hand of exactly 7 cards. We've chosen randomly and we decide that Carl is going to be the player number 1, which means Rasputin is going to be player number 2. That also means that Carl does not get to draw a card, and that does mean that Rasputin, as player number 2, gets the free extra power source at the start of the game. We're ready to start the game with the upkeep phase for our very first player. That's going to be Carl, who needs to start making some power. Since he doesn't get to draw a card, we're going to move immediately to the gather power phase. So this is going to be his side of the board. We're going to see that he controls his starting area. Remember, you have a relic in play for the area you control at the start of the game. He's going to start with 2 power or 2 resources. So he's going to have 2 resources at the start of the game. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to refresh all of our relics. So our relics are available to be put into play if we do decide to do so. Domination is going to be skipped since we both have exactly 1 relic on the board and we don't have any units to prepare, so we're going to go ahead and go on to our main phase where we can start playing cards and start making some decisions. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start bringing out some units onto the board, and we do have some units that only have a cost of 1 to bring out on the board. So we're going to start bringing these units out on the board so we start getting some board presence and possibly start getting some relics out and start controlling some of these areas, which are going to give us some extra special benefits. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to summon or bring into play the Vril Ya Novice, which costs us 1 power to bring him into play. We're going to use our 1 power, remove him from our board so we know that's done. Then we're going to go ahead and activate this unit, exhaust him, and then we're going to move him 1 space over. That's what we're going to do for this unit. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to spend our second source or our second piece of power to bring in a second Vril Ya Novice. We're going to exhaust him also and move him forward onto the board. We have no other actions we can do on our turn. We're out of power. There's nothing else we can do. Our turn's over. We're now going to move over to Rasputin, who gets to start making his upkeep and start making some decisions for his main phase. The first thing Rasputin gets to do is he does get to draw a card, because remember, it's only the very first player who misses the draw a card phase. So we now start with a hand of exactly 8 cards in our hand. We do have our stronghold in play, which we control, so we're going to go ahead and gain 2 resources that we're going to add that we have access to, power we can use right now. Our relic count is currently equal, so there's no current domination between our 2 different forces. And we don't have any units on the board already, so the only thing left to do on our upkeep is to go ahead and ready all of our relics, and we're done, and it's now time to move on to our main phase. The very first thing Rasputin is going to do, he's going to spend 1 resource to bring a card into play. He's going to bring the Swarming Lice card into play. We're then going to exhaust that card, and we're going to move that card 1 space forward. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and spend 2 power to bring into play the Novgorodian Nobleman, who has a very nice power. We can exhaust him to actually gain more power. So we're going to bring him into play. It's going to cost us 2 power to bring him into play. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to exhaust him to gain 1 of those power back. We now have 1 power left in our pool. Unfortunately, we don't have any cards left that we can play because all of our cards in play currently cost more than 1 power, and we can't bring any more units into play even if we could, because our only spot we can bring units into play is currently blocked, and you can only have 1 unit per square. So that is going to end our turn. There's nothing else we can do. That's going to be the end of Rasputin's turn. It's now Carl's turn. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to draw a single card, and he's going to gain a Faustian Physicist, which is a nice card. It's a unit card we can bring into play that we can also sacrifice to gain power anytime we want, as long as he's not currently exhausted. Really nice card to have out on the board, or we can just sacrifice him immediately to get some free power, so a nice benefit there. We currently only have 1 area that's going to generate power for us, so we're going to gain 2 power worth of resources. We currently have the same amount of relics as our opponent. So we're not going to get any domination, so we're going to go ahead and refresh all of our exhausted units, bypassing the refresh relic phrase because we don't have any relics that aren't refreshed, so we don't need to worry about that. That's the end of our upkeep. We can start making decisions and start figuring out exactly what we want to do. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit to move it forward into this location, and then we're going to go ahead and drop our very first relic, which means we now control this location even if we don't currently have a unit there. We're then going to exhaust this unit to move it over here, and we're going to drop our second relic, taking control of this area. And now remember, we now have more relics on the board than our opponent, so at the start of every one of our turns, as long as this continues to be true, we're going to start gaining domination over our opponent, And remember, the first person to get 5 points of domination wins the game. We still have a little bit of power left to spend, so we're going to go ahead and burn our last 2 power. We're going to go ahead and bring in a Bavarian Count into play. He does have a power which is quite similar to this unit over here, which means we can go ahead and exhaust this unit to go ahead and gain 1 power. That's all of our units exhausted. That's all the power we want to spend at this time. That's going to end our turn. It's now back to Rasputin to take their turn. So during Rasputin's turn, the first thing we need to do is we need to draw a card. We're going to go ahead and gain the Guided Therapist, which is a unit which is 2 attack, 2 hit points, and he also has toughness, which means that he can resist all the damage from any unit that only does 1 point of damage. So he's a great unit to get into play. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and gain 2 resources because we don't have any extra locations to give us resources. We get the resources only from this location. We still do have our 1 power from the last turn we did not spend though. So we have a total of 3 resources. The next thing we need to do is we need to compare how many relics we have compared to our opponent. If we have more relics on the board, we're going to get 1 point of dominance. Unfortunately, this is not the case. We have 1 relic on the board and our opponent currently has 3 relics on the board, so they're currently outnumbering us. So we definitely want to make sure we're getting some relics out this turn, otherwise we're going to start losing the dominance game. We don't have any relics that we need ready because they're already in the current spot that we can start playing them from, so the only thing left to do is we're going to go ahead and refresh all of our units. And we're ready to start doing our main phase. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and exhaust our Swarming Lice. We're going to move them over to this location, and then we're going to go ahead and drop a relic at this location, meaning that we're going to start gaining power from this location even if we move our unit off of it. So that's going to help us in the game of trying to keep up with the power game that our opponent is already doing because they're starting to gain more power than us. So we definitely want to match that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit, not for his power. We're going to use it to move him. And then we're going to bring our second relic into play because we don't want our opponent getting that dominance. We're now currently matching them in the amount of relics, so we're doing a-okay on that aspect now. We're then going to go ahead and spend 2 power to bring another unit into play, and we're going to bring in a second Novgardian Nobleman into play, who we're going to immediately exhaust to go ahead and gain 1 power back. We now have 2 power in our power pool that we can use at any time if we want. We could even use it right now if we had some spells we wanted to cast, which we do have some good spells, but we're not quite ready to use them yet, so we're going to go ahead and end our turn, and we're going to move on to Carl's turn, who needs to start by drawing cards. For Carl's turn, the first thing they need to do is they need to draw a card, and they're going to gain the Underworlder card, which is a unit that costs 4 power, has 3 attack, has 3 hit points, and he can actually be made more powerful if we put more mana or more power into him, making him a little bit more powerful. The next thing we need to do is we need to gain resources. Now we currently have an extra spot on the board under our control, which is going to give us resources or power. That's going to give us 1 power plus the 2 power we're already gaining for our stronghold. That's going to give us a total of 3 extra resources, bringing us to a total of 4 because we still had 1 left over from the prior round. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and check domination. We have 3 relics in play. Our player or our opponent currently has 3 relics in play, so there's not going to be any domination at all. We don't have any relics to refresh. So the only thing we need to do is we need to unexhaust any of our units currently in play, and we're done with our upkeep and we can start making some decisions. We're going to decide to start doing some aggressive gameplay and start attacking our opponent before they get entrenched too deeply and we can't do anything about it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to exhaust this unit to move him over here 1 square over, heading towards this power source here to give us some extra power. Now remember, since we still have our artifact at this location, we do still control this location. So we're going to go ahead and spend 4 power to bring a large, powerful creature into play. And we can bring it into play at this location because remember, we still control this location. And we're going to bring the Underworld into play, which is a very nice creature, their unit. Anytime we bring him into play, if we want to spend an extra 2 power, we can give him fast attack, which means if he does more damage to his opponent destroying it, they can't attack back, making him a very powerful creature to start wiping out some of these weaker creatures our opponent currently has. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move this other novice, exhausting him, moving him 1 space over, and again, since we have a relic down here, we still do control this location, meaning we're still going to get power from this location, and then we're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit right here to go ahead and generate 1 point of power. It's now Rasputin's turn. The first thing we need to do is we need to draw a card, and we're going to go ahead and gain a Swarming Lice card, one we've already seen over there before. Nothing too new there. Next thing we need to do is we need to gain our resources. We currently control this area for 1 resource, plus that area for a total of 3 total resources, bringing us to a total of 5 resources. Then we're going to compare how many relics we have compared to our opponent. We have the same amount of relics, so we don't need to worry about any dominance happening in any there. We don't have any relics already, so we're going to go ahead and refresh all of our units. So they're ready to be used for our current phase, and then we're going to end our upkeep, and now we get to make some decisions. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and exhaust the Swarming Lice, moving it over one to the left. Remember, we still control this area because we do have a relic down there, so we're not going to lose access to that power. We're then going to exhaust this unit to go ahead and move him one space forward, and then we're going to exhaust this unit to go ahead and gain the power that he gives from exhausting that unit. That gives us a total of 6 power. We're going to go ahead and spend all 6 of that power right here and right now, and we're going to bring out a very powerful creature, which should put a little bit of fear into this Underworlder because this is a 5/5 creature with toughness, which means he takes 1 less point of damage, and he's more than enough to take care of this Underworlder, giving Carl different choices if he wants to indeed try to attack this way, because with this Bear Spirit, we can definitely take out that Underworlder. And then just to add a little bit more pressure, we're going to go ahead and exhaust this Bear Spirit to move it over, just to accentuate the point that if Carl wants to advance his Underworlder, we're ready to stop him right in his tracks. That's going to end the turn for Rasputin. It's now back to Carl's turn. First thing we need to do on Carl's turn is we need to draw a card. We're going to go ahead and gain the Gas Attack card, which for 4 power allows us to do 1 point of damage to all units on the board. That means friendly and enemy units. So it may be something that we definitely don't want to use yet, because that's going to kill a lot of our units that we want to keep alive. And it would only possibly take out a few of their units that are giving them power too. So something we may want to think about, but I don't think we're going to do it quite yet. Next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and gain power. We're going to gain 1 plus 2 is a total of 3 power that we get to use. We don't have any relics that we need to refresh at all. We don't have any domination because we're currently matching on the amount of relics we have versus our opponent. So the only thing left to do is refresh all of our units. And it's now time to start our main phase. The first thing Carl's going to do is he's going to exhaust the Underworlder to go ahead and move up to put a little bit of pressure on Rasputin. Then we're going to go ahead and exhaust the Bavarian Count to go ahead and generate 1 point of power. So we're now at a total of 5 total power. We're then going to go ahead and advance this Real Novice 1 step forward, which means that we now control this location, and if we manage to keep hold of this location, it's going to give us power. Probably not going to be able to do that, but we're going to put a little bit of pressure on Rasputin and force him to go ahead and attack us to get that location back. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same on the other side, and this is definitely one location we can definitely hold on to, so we're not too worried about that. And then the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to bring a unit into play. We're going to go ahead and bring an Initiative Woden into play, who costs us a total of 3 power to bring him into play. So we're going to use all 3 of that power to bring him into play, and then we're going to spend 2 more power to give him +1 to his attack permanently, which means he's now a 3 attack and he has 2 hit points, making it so that he does a little bit more damage and possibly can start helping this Underworlder take out this Bear Spirit, because this Bear Spirit manages to tramp all the way down to our stronghold. We're definitely going to lose the game. Then we're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit, move him off to the side so he's not blocking our location where we bring units into play, because this is currently our only location that's not blocked, because this location is blocked by this guy we keep using for the extra power. That's going to end our turn. There's no other actions we want to take. We're out of power. We're done with Carl's turn. It's now back to Rasputin's turn. First thing we need to do for Rasputin is we draw a card. We're going to go ahead and gain our 3rd and final Swarming Lice. We now have 2 of them in our hand that we throw out on the board. Not that big of a deal, not too powerful a creature, but it's definitely a creature we can use. We're gaining 1 plus 2 is a total of 3 power that we can use for this turn to do things. We have the matching amount of relics as our opponent, so we don't have to worry about any kind of dominance at all. No relics to refresh. The only thing left to do is go ahead and refresh all the units we currently have on the board. And then we're done with our upkeep, and it's now time to make some decisions and decide exactly what we want to do on our turn. The first thing Rasputin is going to do is they're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit to go ahead and gain the 1 power they need to bring them up to a total of 4 power. Next thing they're going to do is exhaust this unit, go ahead and move over to this location, and then we're going to drop our final relic, forcing this player to drop their final relic too if they don't want us to start winning the dominance game, because we now currently have more relics on the board than they do. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to spend 2 power to go ahead and cast our very first spell in the game, and we're going to cast a spell called Basilia's Doll. What this does, it allows us to give any one unit 1 extra hit point that they make them a little bit tougher to defeat. Now that this unit has this extra hit point, he takes 2 points damage to defeat him, which means he can easily take out this unit and survive and manage to take this location, giving us 1 nice little bit of an advantage there. We still have 2 points of power left to use, and we're going to go ahead and decide if we want to spend that last 2 points of power, if we want to go ahead and save those 2 points of power for a future round and play a little bit more defensively, since we do have a lot of units currently on the board. We're going to decide to go ahead and save that power for our future rounds as kind of a veiled threat versus our opponent to let them know that we might have some powerful cards in our hand. Because remember, our opponent has no idea what cards we currently have in our hand. And instead, we're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit, move them up one space to guarantee that we're locking in and guarding this location from this Underworlder, who now will not be able to steal our relic from us by defeating this creature, because this creature is much more powerful than the Underworlder. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and initiate combat between the Swarming Lice and between this Novice. So we're going to exhaust him to initiate the combat. He's going to do 1 point of damage to the Novice. So the Novice is going to take 1 point of damage. Since neither one of these units have any special abilities, we don't need to worry about that. And then this Novice is going to do 1 point of damage back to the Swarming Lice. Now, this Novice only has 1 hit point. He currently has 1 point of damage, so he is going to be destroyed. He's going to go to the discard pile of Carl. This unit has 2 hit points and only 1 point of damage on it, so he's going to survive the attack. He's going to move forward, and we now control this location. Now, most likely, we're going to lose this unit very quickly from this Underworlder, but it's also going to stop the Carl player from getting the extra power from controlling that location, because if we did not do what we just did, Carl would have gotten 5 points of power on the start of their turn. We have no units left to activate. We don't want to spend any more power. That's the end of Rasputin's turn. We're now back to Carl's turn, who needs to start changing his strategies now that things are starting to be aggressively turning the table towards them. First thing we need to do is we need to draw a card. We're going to go ahead and gain a Mechanic, which is a unit that has 2 power cost, 1 attack, 1 hit point, but he has the ability that I can sacrifice and blow up a lot of stuff. Could have its uses if I put him in the proper position. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and gain resources. Now, we don't control this location anymore, but we do control this location for 1 power. We still have our relic here for 2 power, and we have this location, our stronghold, for another 2 power, giving us a total of 4 power we can use on our turn. We don't have any relics to refresh at all. We are losing the dominance game, so we make sure we want to get that relic out on our turn. And then finally, the only thing left to do is we need to refresh all of our units that are currently on the board, and then we can move away from our upkeep phase and actually start our main turn. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to initiate combat between the Underworlder and between the Swarming Lice. Now, we could spend the 2 power to go and give him Fast Strike, which would guarantee he would destroy this unit without taking any damage back. But it's not really going to matter because we can pretty much see the strategy that the Rasputin player is using with the Bear Spirit. We know this Bear Spirit is making a beeline for the Underworlder to destroy the Underworlder. So why waste the power when we can put the power to better uses in other locations? So we're going to initiate the combat. We're going to do 3 points damage to this unit, who only happens to have 1 hit point left, so we know he's going to be destroyed. And he's going to do 1 point of damage back to us. Totals are going to be resolved. We're going to figure out that the Swarming Lice is going to be completely destroyed, and it's going to be removed from the board, so not a big deal for us. We know they're out of the game, and they're going to go to our discard pile, and then we're going to move into this location, taking this location from our opponent, which means we'll get some extra power from it, which will be pretty nice for us, even though we do have 1 point of damage on us. That's all we want to do for the Underworlder. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move the Initiate of Woden. We're going to move up to put some pressure on our opponent. We're going to move the Bavarian Count off this summoning location so we can have access to the summoning location. So we start having 2 locations to bring our units onto the board from. We still have 4 power left over, and we have a couple cards left in our hand to start using. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring a Bavarian Count into play, which is like this card we already have in play. That's going to cost us 2 power to bring him into play. We're then going to go ahead and exhaust him to gain 1 more point of power. And then we're going to have 3 power left over, and we're going to use that power right now to go ahead and bring this Mechanic into play at this location we still control. And this Mechanic is going to cost us a total of 2 power to bring into play. And then we're going to exhaust this Mechanic, and we're going to go ahead and move him 1 spot to the left. Again, we don't want to move him right here because then we know that Bear Spirit is going to destroy him before we even use that ability. Actually, we're going to take that move back, and we're actually going to make a different decision. We actually have a better idea to do right now. We're going to advance the Mechanic 1 space by exhausting him. Then we're going to go ahead and sacrifice him because the sacrifice ability actually doesn't require us to exhaust him. Almost forgot about that. So we're going to move him forward. He's going to do 3 points of damage to this Bear Spirit right here. -1 for the toughness, which means this Bear Spirit has now taken 2 points of damage, meaning he only has 3 life left, which means that if I do take this Bear Spirit to attack this Underworlder, that means that the Bear Spirit will also come pretty close to being destroyed if you can take 1 more point of damage. Plus, I also have this Initiate slowly working towards my stronghold, so now I force Rasputin to start making decisions. Do I want to stop Carl from getting power, or do I want to stop this initiate from making it all the way to my stronghold? That's all the actions we're going to do for the Carl player. Their turn is over. We're now going to move back to Rasputin. The Rasputin player has to make a couple quick decisions because the fact that they held back early in the game means that they allowed the opponent to start controlling these points for this extra power. So we need to start getting very aggressive very, very quickly. First thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a card. We're going to get a Guided Therapist. 3 power, 2 strength, 2 hit points, and toughness, meaning he's harder to defeat. He's going to go into our hand. We're going to gain power. We're going to gain 2 points of power plus 1 more for a total of 3 power. Bringing us all the way up to 5 power. We don't have any relics to refresh at all. Our dominance is not, actually it is going to matter at this point because the Carl player forgot to put his last artifact into play. So we have 4 artifacts versus the 3 artifacts for this player. So dominance is going to give us 1 point of dominance. Remember, if we get 5 points of dominance, we do win the game. Only thing left to do is we need to refresh all of our units that are currently in play. We're done with our upkeep. It's now time to start making some decisions. The first thing Rasputin is going to do is they're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit to go ahead and gain 1 point of power, bring them to a total of 6 power. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to spend 4 of that 6 power to go ahead and bring a Possessed Junker into play. Now, the Possessed Junker is a really interesting unit. It's one of the few units that can actually heal itself because it can spend 2 power to gain 2 of these wound tokens or 2 of these hit point tokens, and you can use this as long as you don't have any tokens currently on your unit. Well, the nice thing is every time you take damage, you actually remove these before you start adding damage tokens. So as long as I have the power and as long as he's not taking too much damage, I can effectively keep healing this unit and keep him on play for a very long time, effectively making him pretty much a wall that can defend my stronghold quite well. I'm going to go ahead and exhaust him to move him forward, and then I'm going to spend the final 2 power since using his ability does not actually exhaust him, and we're going to gain 2 extra hit points, meaning that he can more than take the damage that this Initiative Woden can deal out and still survive it. And that's all we're going to do for that unit. We're going to go ahead and exhaust our Bear Spirit, moving him 1 space over so we can eventually take out this Underworlder. And then finally, the final thing we're going to do is we have 2 choices. We can either exhaust him to gain the power, or we can move him over and try to take out this Novice, but that's not really going to be good for us because we're going to take him out, lose one of our power generators that costs us more power to get into play, so it's not really a good trade-off. So instead of that, we're just simply going to exhaust this unit to gain the power he gives us, and we're going to concede that for a little while, Carl is going to continue to control this location. Those are all the actions we want to do on our turn, because we want to save that power, even though we do have some of these swarming lices in play. We definitely want to save the power to bring out one of our many more powerful creatures, such as this Were Rat, who can start taking a lot of damage and help clear out some of these bad guys that Carl currently has in play. That's the end of our turn. We're done. It's now Carl's turn, and he's going to start his turn by drawing a card, gaining some power, and doing their upkeep. For our upkeep, we see that we currently control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different power sources, so we're going to gain 5 points of power. That's going to bring us to a total of 6 points of power, which is really good for us. It's going to allow us to start bringing some powerful cards into play as long as we have them in our hand. We're going to check to see if we have any relics that need to be refreshed. We don't. We're going to look for dominance. We know we currently have less relics on the board, so we definitely want to get that relic on the board very, very quickly. Only thing left to do is we need to refresh all of our units that we currently have in play. That's going to end our upkeep, and then we need to figure out exactly what we want to do on our turn with our power and the cards in our hand. Carl definitely knows that they want to keep the pressure on Rasputin, so Rasputin can't get a good defense started because they know Rasputin has some pretty powerful cards with lots of toughness abilities in his hand, so he wants to make sure that they can't get those cards out. So we definitely want to keep pressure on our opponent. So we're going to go ahead and exhaust these 2 cards right here to gain 2 more power for us. After we gain that 2 power, we're going to spend 2 of those points of power to increase the strength of the Initiative Wodan and giving him 1 more attack strength, bringing him to a total of 4 attack strength. We're then going to use 2 more power again to raise his attack power 1 more point, bringing him to a total of 5 attack power. We're then going to initiate an attack to attack this Possessed Junker. That's going to give us a total of 5 attacks, so we're going to do 5 points of damage to the Possessed Junker. Now remember, the first points of damage come off from the gain hit points. That's going to bring him down to a total of 3, and then we're going to do 3 more points of damage from a total of 5. The Possessed Junker is going to do 3 points of damage back to us. Then we're just going to figure out if anybody survives. We see that this unit has 3 hit points and 3 damage on him, so he's going to be removed from the board. And then we're going to see that we have 2 life points left, but a total of 3 damage currently on us. That's also going to remove us from the board. Of course, that does mean that our initiative has also been defeated, but at least we've gotten rid of a very powerful unit for Rasputin to use. That was basically a unit that can heal, which could have been a very strong thorn in our side. Kind of a decent trade-off, at least as far as we're concerned for right now. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to use our Underworlder, and we're going to go ahead and attack this Bear Spirit. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and drop our final relic kind of sneakily, because we know we're going to lose our unit and we know that the Bear Spirit is going to be destroyed. But at least this way we can lock in this fact and at least keep control of this location, which means it's going to continue to give us power. So we're going to go ahead and exhaust our unit to initiate the attack. We're going to do 3 points of damage to the Bear Spirit, and then the Bear Spirit is going to do 5 points of damage back to us, which is more than enough to destroy us. So we're going to be destroyed and removed from the board. Not a big deal for us because we did lock in this location. And this Bear Spirit, which has a total of 5 points of damage, would have been destroyed, except for I completely failed to do the math. Remember, one special thing about the Bear Spirit, he does have the toughness ability, which means he actually took 1 less point of damage from our Underworlder, and since I completely forgot about that, the Bear Spirit's actually going to survive, which is something I'm going to have to regret probably very, very quickly, because I bet that Bear Spirit is going to turn around and try to destroy my relic on their turn. And unfortunately, I don't even think First Strike would have helped me, even though we had the power for it. But hindsight is 20/20, so now we need to figure out exactly what we want to do with the rest of our cards and see if there's anything we can do to keep the board under control. We do have a little bit of power left, so we're going to go ahead and burn 3 more power. We're going to bring a Vril Rocketeer into play, and then we're going to exhaust him to go ahead and move him up 1 space. We only have 1 point of power left. Nothing else really we can do, so we're going to go ahead and end our turn, looking at the board and hoping that things did not go too badly against us with that very poor decision we made with the Underworlder. That's the end of our turn. It's now back to Rasputin's turn, who needs to start by drawing a card. For Rasputin's turn, the first thing we need to do is we need to draw a card. We're going to go ahead and get Underworld Stroke, which allows us to take any target unit on a non-stronghold tile and make it so it cannot move, attack, or use any of its active abilities. So it may be a very good card for us to bring into play and to use very, very quickly. It does cost 5 power, though, which can be a little bit of a detriment. We're going to go ahead and gain 2 + 1, a total of 3 power. We don't have any relics to refresh. We don't have dominance anymore since Carl now has the same amount of relics in play as us. So the only thing left to do is we need to go ahead and refresh all of our units that are currently on the board. And then we can leave our upkeep phase and move into our actual phase and start making some decisions. The first thing we know we definitely want to do is we want to exhaust this unit to move forward to destroy this relic, which is actually going to be removed from the board. And we're going to put it on the Vril Society card on the en route section, which means that Carl does not have access to that relic until it refreshes. That's also going to give us 1 point of dominance since we destroyed an opponent's relic. And we're now going to control this location as long as this Rocketeer doesn't take it back from us. Next thing we're going to do is exhaust both of our units here that are going to give us the extra power. So we're going to gain extra 2 power from exhausting those 2 units. And then we're going to spend 5 of the power we just gained to bring a unit into play. We're going to go ahead and bring the Were-Rat into play. We're going to exhaust them to move them 1 step up. And then we're going to spend 1 final power to go ahead and give this unit the ability of toughness, which means that he's going to take 1 less point of damage every time he gets attacked. We're completely out of power. We don't have any other cards we want to use or activate or that we can activate. So that's going to be the end of turn for Rasputin. It's now back to Carl's turn. We're going to go ahead and speed this up now so you can just see exactly how quickly this game plays. We're just going to go ahead and draw a card. We're going to go ahead and gain the 4 power. 1, 2 + 2 is 4. We're going to gain a total of 4 power for locations we currently have. We're going to go ahead and refresh the 1 relic that we burned. We're going to go ahead and refresh our cards. And that's going to finish our upkeep turn. And now we need to figure out exactly which kind of cards we want to bring into play. The first thing we're going to do as the Carl player is we're going to go ahead and cause a little bit of damage to the Rasputin player and take away a little bit of their power source. We're going to exhaust this unit to move them forward, and we're going to destroy this relic, which is going to go into the en route section on our opponent's board. That's going to give us 1 point of dominance because we destroy an opponent's relic. And not only that, we are managing to take away some of the power pool this player has access to, and we're moving closer to their stronghold. So we're kind of killing a couple different birds with 1 stone. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and burn 4 power to bring a card into play. We're going to bring the Vril Berserker into play, which means that anytime we bring that card into play, we need to randomly discard 1 card, because that's the effect of this card. That card is going to be removed from our hand. And then we're going to exhaust this unit to move him 1 space forward, again putting the pressure on our opponent. That leaves us with 1 power left over. There's nothing else we want to do. Actually, we're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit to gain 1 power. and we will use both of these points of power to go ahead and bring this physicist onto the board, which has a nice ability that we can sacrifice him to gain power. We're going to exhaust this unit to move him off of our stronghold, and now our turn is over. Rasputin needs to draw a card. We're going to gain another Bear Spirit, another very powerful unit that if we get it back on the board, very nice card to have into play for us. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to gain power. We're going to gain 2 power from having this location. We lost this location, but we're definitely going to get 1 point of power from this location. That's going to give us a total of 3 power to have to spend on this turn, so we're not doing too badly on the power front. Next thing we need to do is we need to compare how many relics we have compared to our opponent. We have the same amount of relics on the board. We need to refresh all the cards we currently have on play. And that's going to be it for our upkeep phase, and now we need to figure out what we want to do on our actual turn. For Rasputin's turn, they're going to go ahead and exhaust this unit for 1 power, this unit for another point of power. That's going to give us a total of 5 points of power. We're then going to exhaust this unit to go ahead and move this unit 1 space forward. And you may think this may be a bad idea because we're leaving our stronghold completely unprotected. And that's what we want our opponent to think. But actually what we plan on doing is we're going to spend all 5 of our power to go ahead and use the ability of Underworld Stroke, which is going to make it so this real Berserker can no longer do any movements, any attacks, or use any of its special abilities, which means we just gave ourselves a straight beeline for our opponent's stronghold, making their life very, very difficult. We're going to grin at our opponent. Our turn is over. We're now going to move over to Carl's turn. The Carl player realizes that they are now in trouble unless they get a really card draw that's somehow going to protect them, and we did get a decent unit that can at least help protect them just a little bit with our card draw. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to gain 1 point of power. We're going to gain 1 more for a total of 2. 2 more for a total of 4, giving us a total of 4 points of power that we can use to start bringing some abilities into play. We don't have to worry about relics because we're matching on the relics. We're going to go ahead and refresh all of our units that are currently in play that we can refresh. The real Berserker does still refresh, but unfortunately he can't do anything on his turn because of the Underworld Stroke card that we played, that Rasputin played on top of him. That's the only thing we can do for upkeep phase. Now it's time to start spending some of our power. Hopefully we can stop this were-rat from taking out our stronghold. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to exhaust the Rocketeers in an effort to put some pressure back on Rasputin in case his plan somehow backfires against him. At least we got the pressure put on him. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and spend a little power. We're going to spend 2 power to bring one of our undead units into play. Now he's not too powerful because he can't conquer, but at least he can take a little bit of damage, and then we're going to go ahead and exhaust him to move him forward. We're going to exhaust these 2 units to gain 2 more points of power, bring us to a total of 4 points of power. And unfortunately, that's all we can do, so that's going to end our turn. We now get to move back to Rasputin, who's going to start by drawing a card and gaining some power and making some more decisions. Rasputin gains another Underworld Strike, so now we know that we're in great shape. We're going to gain 2 power from having our stronghold plus 1 more power for this location that we still control. That's going to give us a total of 3 total power. We currently have the same amount of relics as our opponent. We're going to refresh our relics. We're going to refresh all the units we currently have on the board. And then we need to figure out exactly what we want to do. It's going to be a pretty easy decision for us because we know exactly what we're going to be doing on our turn. The first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to exhaust both these units for 2 more points of power, giving us a total of 5 power. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to have this unit attack this unit right here. He's going to do 4 points damage to this unit. And this unit is going to do 3 points damage back, minus 1 for the toughness that our were-rats have, so they're going to take a total of 2 points of damage. Now we're going to figure out how much damage is on each unit. This one has 4 damage, it only has 3 life, so it's going to be destroyed. This unit has 2 damage on it, still has 4 life, so it's still alive. It's going to move up and take the space that was just occupied by our opponent, bring us 1 space away from the stronghold. We're then going to go ahead and cast our other Underworld Stroke, which is going to cost 5 points or 5 power to go ahead and use. And we're going to go ahead and use that on this Rocketeer over here, ensuring that that Rocketeer cannot take our base. And we pretty much have locked in the game unless our opponent can find some way to protect their stronghold very, very quickly. We don't have any power left. We don't have anything else we want to do on our turn. We're going to go ahead and end our turn right there, and it's now back to Carl's turn. First thing Carl needs to do is he needs to draw a card, and hopefully he's going to get a card that he can use. And he did get a card he can use, but unfortunately he doesn't have the power to use it, so it looks like Carl is going to lose the game. Well, we'll just go through the efforts just very, very quickly so you can see exactly how it's going to work. We're going to go ahead and gain 1 power for this location. We're going to gain 2 more power for this location, and this location is going to give us a total of 4 power. We're then going to refresh all of our cards. We don't have to worry about any relics because we currently both have the same amount of relics in play, and now we're done with all of our upkeep, and it's now time to decide exactly what we want to do. Fortunately, we actually managed to draw the 1 card that is actually going to save our skin, thanks to the fact that we do have enough power to use this card. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to exhaust these cards for 2 points of power. We're then going to smile at our opponent as we bring in the Champion of Hyboria into play, which costs a total of 9 power. We're going to spend all 9 power just to bring this 1 unit into play, which is going to leave us with 1 point of power left over, but at least this unit is more than powerful enough to exhaust to attack him. This unit right here, which is going to do a total of 8 points damage, which is more than enough to destroy this rat, removing him from the board. Although the rat is going to do a little bit of damage back to us, it's not going to be enough to take our unit out. And this unit is going to move up and advance on our opponent and start putting a lot of pressure back on Rasputin. It's now Rasputin's turn. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a card, and we're going to get a Devoted Bureaucrat, which is a card which actually has a lot of ability to take a lot of damage. Doesn't hit too hard, but he does have 4 hit points, meaning that he can actually take the hurt quite easily. We're going to figure out how much power we have. We're going to gain 2 power plus 1 for a total of 3 power. We're going to check our relic status. We're not going to worry about it because it's perfectly even right now. We're going to refresh any of our cards that we currently have in play, and then we're done with our upkeep, and it's now time to figure out exactly what we want to do. I think you've seen enough gameplay of Cabals to figure out exactly if this is a game that may interest you or not. I've shown you how it looks, played a lot of cards, and shown you a lot of stuff. It looks like we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth between our opponents, still left to go. Looks like we still have some cards such as the Bear Spirit that we can bring out to try to stop this champion, so things aren't looking hopeless for Rasputin. Looks like both of our players still have some tricks up their sleeves, still have some options of exactly what they want to do, and each player still has some potential to still win the game. Hope you enjoyed this gameplay for Cabals, the board game. Stay tuned for my final thoughts, where I'm going to give you some thoughts on the game itself. Now, I want to warn you that since this is a preview copy of the game, there are still some other things that can change the game. I'm just going to give you some actual final thoughts and not a full review of the game, just some ideas of what I think about what I've seen from the game so far. Stay tuned for my final thoughts.